You're listening to Girls with Grafts, a burn community podcast created by Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors, a leading nonprofit dedicated to supporting the burn community. In this podcast, we'll talk with burn survivors, share resources to help with supporting and improving burn recovery, and discuss how to prevent burn injuries. Here are your hosts, burn survivors and Phoenix Society's marketing team, Amber Wilcox and Rachel Kudlak.
Hello and welcome back to season 2 of Girls with Grafts. I am Rachel Kudlak and I am one of your hosts, and I'm joined with my co-host Amber Wilcox.
Hello, so excited to be back for season 2. This is so exciting. Thank you all so much for the support we received in season 1. But I am super excited to kick off season 2 in such a beautiful way. So without further ado, Rachel, do you want to introduce our exciting first guest?
Yes, I'm so excited. And also, I will forewarn everyone, her bio is long because she has so much experience. So bear with me. But I'm so excited to welcome Kechi to Girls with Grafts. Nigerian-born author and powerful singer. She is an inspirational and TEDx keynote speaker, MBA student, and bullying prevention advocate. Her dramatic story, as well as her impactful messages of resiliency and overcoming, combine powerfully to inspire personal and cultural transformation. She found her true voice after her accident, a plane crash that took the lives of 107 of 109 passengers in Nigeria in 2005. Throughout the difficult journey of burn recovery, Kechi by Christian faith, her family, and her music. Becoming a finalist on America's Got Talent in 2017 was Kechi's truest dream realized. And on June 10th of 2018, she released her debut single, Don't You Dare, on all digital music platforms. In 2019, she became a finalist on the premiere season of America's Got Talent, The Champions, through Simon Cowell's Golden Buzzer. Kechi's memoir, More Than My Scars, released on March 29th, 2022, under Baker Publishing Group, and her self-titled debut album is currently streaming on all digital music platforms. Kechi hopes to use her voice and her story to ignite hope all over the world within those that need it. Kechi, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you on Girls with Grafts.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to be here and honored to be premiering season 2 with y'all. That's so cool.
Well, Kechi, we are so happy to have you here with us today. Everyone in our community truly loves you and follows your journey. I know Rachel shared a little bit about your burn injury, but if you don't mind, would you take us a little bit back to your accident, the plane crash, and what your recovery looked like?
Yes. Okay. So my accident happened when I was 16 years old. I'm currently 33 for some context. It was in 2005, December 10th. And it was back home in my home country, Nigeria. It was a plane crash that took the lives of 107 of 109 people on board. So it was a regular commercial plane. I was flying home for the Christmas holidays from my high school, which was a boarding school in Nigeria. So it was a local flight from one state to the other. And there were 60 other kids from my high school on that plane, including very close friends who didn't make it, unfortunately. There were 2 survivors. Some was myself and another woman who I didn't know before the accident, but is a good friend now. And so through that accident, I sustained 3rd-degree burns over 65% of my body. So pretty much means everything from the top of my head to my feet burned except for my torso and a little bit of my back. So after sustaining those injuries, I had like a 30% chance of survival when I was found. And within 24 hours, I was flown to the nearest hospital that could care for my level of burns, which was not in Nigeria, but in South Africa, in a hospital called Mill Park Hospital for burns. So that's where I spent the next 7 months in their burn ICU and eventually their ward. But they essentially saved my life over there. And then I came over to America in 2007 for reconstructive surgery with Shriners. And that's how I met, connected with Shriners, the Phoenix Society, and all that good stuff. But yeah, that's, I guess, just in summary, what happened to me. That's my accident.
Well, thank you for sharing your story. That I don't think I knew all parts of that. I've watched you for a long time on America's Got Talent, but don't think I knew all of that. So it's really cool that you still connected with the other survivor on the crash.
Yeah,
That's really neat.
had to.
And how long really was that physical recovery? I know you said you were there for 7 months,
Yes.
but when did you get back? When did you leave? When did you kind of get back into, a normal sense of living again?
Gotcha. So yeah, the time frame very long. I mean, y'all already know it's a very long healing process. You cannot rush it. Especially when you sustain like really intense burns. So I was in the ICU for 4 months of those 7, the burn ICU. And it was touch and go in the beginning a lot. I dealt with a lot of sepsis and lots of infection, lots of situations where I almost didn't make it, but thankfully did because I just got such great care. And I had so much support from like my loved ones, my mom especially. And then the next 3 months I spent in the ward, the burn ward in the same hospital. So that's where they started giving me things like pressure garments and just things that would basically help to start the process of helping the skin to kind of gain back its elasticity and helping the scars like press them in so they don't form keloids and, things that we're very prone to essentially, when it comes to like skin that has melanin, I think is a little more prone to things like that. So they started trying to combat that while I was in South Africa, but it didn't really, things were still a little fresh then, hadn't really moved around as much. Like the scars, they move constantly. So, I mean, the way they were in like the 5th, 6th month was not how they were going to be in like a year, so, but they tried what they could. The most important thing in South Africa was like, they saved my life. And then I moved back to Nigeria after 7 months. So I was in Nigeria for about 6 months or so. So it was July 2006 up till February 2007. And that was kind of like a waiting period for me where I was being kind of managed by Shell Hospital while they looked for a hospital that would continue my reconstructive, like the actual reconstructive surgery would finally start in this, potential hospital, which ended up being Shriners in Galveston. So in January 2007, I was moved over to Shriners in America, moved with my entire family, completely relocated, and lived in Galveston while going to the Galveston, shrine for treatment, where I got a lot more surgeries that were a lot more specific when it came to giving me back my independence and just practical treatment. South Africa was very focused on just saving my life. They didn't really care much for, I guess, the quality of the life. It was just important to save it, and that's what they did. Then America is where they focused on giving me back a quality of life. So that took a very long time. I got here in a wheelchair, and it took about maybe 4 or 5 years of surgeries, very specific surgeries, to get me back some semblance of independence. Well, no, fully, I would say. Semblance of independence started within 2 years. So I was there for 2007. 2007, 2009. So those 2 years between 2007, 2009, that's when I had the surgeries that got me out of the wheelchair, first of all, and got me mobile. And then I started high school. So within those 2 years, I was able to like restart high school, which, was cut short in Nigeria. And so I got strong enough to actually like attend school physically, like go to an actual school. I went to Ball High, graduated, and then started college. And then during my college years, the next 4 years, that was when I continued my surgeries that continued to give me more and more independence until I got to a place where they had pretty much done like giving me the foundation of like my independence. You know what I mean? Everything else from here was going to be like purely for, I guess, aesthetic, just kind of
right.
Like
Visual,
is really to make things as much as like normal looking as possible, like to the best that doctors can afford to. Into like being able to do things for myself, that happened around 2013. So I guess that would be about 7-8 years after the accident happened.
Oh, wow. So it's been a long road to recovery. How would you say you're doing today?
Today, I am obviously at my best. Definitely. I can do pretty much anything for myself. Still cannot lift things that are too heavy. I have to be very careful with that, especially with working out, just because my fingers have pins in them. They were actually, my hands were like, they've kind of fused like this when I first came here, which was a very problem. I couldn't do, I mean, obviously you can't do much with like your hands this way. So
Right.
major surgeries they did was to give me back this range of movement. And that had to be achieved by literally breaking the bones in my fingers and then them in a specific position that would be useful. So one on the, I guess the con would be I would never be able to straighten the fingers ever again, but at least they would be fused in a more practical position. So this is how
Sure.
they since 2008, I think, is when I did that surgery. And so this was probably the most life-changing surgery because like
I'm sure.
you need your fingers and your hands to do stuff. But I still have to be very careful not to strain it just because the pins are in there and I can't lift things that are too heavy. Aside from that, I think the main thing I deal with the most right now is the itching. The itching is just it's just this demon that I feel probably I'm gonna have to deal with for the rest of my life. It's just not as bad as it used to be, but it's still, I mean, even as I speak today, it's still a big problem. Like I'm currently literally trying to figure out my prescription for the one itching med that makes a slight difference, I guess, which is I think it's processing. I think that's what it is. So that with a combination of like Benadryl tries to keep things at bay. I have moments where it gets really bad. Like in the summer, the height of summer, it's just like at its best. But then
With the
sometimes,
heat.
yeah, exactly, the heat. Sometimes in winter, it also gets bad. It's really random. Sometimes I just have these phases where it's just really, really bad and I just can't stop scratching. But I will say, no matter how bad it gets, it's not enough to stop me from living my life. So I think that's a very important point to kind of point out. So yeah.
I love that you brought up itching because I think we don't talk about that enough, or we haven't talked about that a lot in the podcast, but itching is something I hear all the time from other burn survivors of like, I can't. Now you're still in Texas, right, Kechi?
Yes, I am.
And so the heat there is just as bad. I'm in Florida. And so the heat.
I
find though.
Yep.
The humidity is rough, but I think too, I go up north and I struggle with the dry climate of like that cold more than I do with the heat.
Interesting.
But I think like the heat makes me sweat so much that I can't obviously sweat in my graph, but I think like the humidity of the sweat, for whatever reason, I find it like more helpful than the cold. But
very interesting. Huh.
Yeah. But do you use a lotion?
What's your like like how much of your body? What's the percentage?
Yeah, I'm 20%. So it's just on my legs. So I don't have a harder time up here. My legs do. I do get irritated on my legs, like in this specifically where there's hypertrophic scarring.
Yeah,
I don't know. And either there's raised.
Yep.
That's where I get the most itching. But I would say, yeah, for me, it's the cold seems to get me more than the heat.
I find that very interesting because it's completely opposite for me. Literally,
really?
I love the cold. I feel like I thrive in the cold.
That's funny.
That is so
and
fun.
Yeah, maybe it's the percentage of I don't know, Rachel, do you struggle
So in the summer, it's like the summer and the winter, both of them. Because in the winter, I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, so I also get some heat. And in the summer, I think it's more because I'm applying a lot more sunscreen and a lot more products on my skin, and then I get irritated that way. Then in the winter, when I am like up in Pennsylvania visiting my family for the holidays, I dry up and I am irritated in a different way. It's like two different irritations.
Do you use anything on your scars, like lotion or whatnot, that help? Anything that helps?
Oh yeah. I mean, without that lotion, it's impossible. It's not possible. It's like first when I moved here, oh my god! Before I moved to America, finding the right combination of lotion was hell. Honestly, like there's nothing worse than having like, for me, what makes, because I'm pretty much grafted everywhere, right? Except for I guess like my tummy, although it looks like it's grafted because that's where they took like all the skin and stuff. But like that's the only place on my back that has normal skin. Everywhere else, except maybe some parts of my upper arm, have like just like have my actual skin, but then most of it is still like, keloids or like grafts. So I think because most of my body is made up of like the grafts, I don't have enough like sweat pores. So like things like I overheat so easily, essentially. It's just, it happens even if it's not like the height of summer, it still can happen just inside my own house. So like the cold is the only thing that like makes it better, essentially. But I will say also the right lotion makes all the difference. And so I was saying all this to say, in the beginning, before I moved here, we didn't have anything more than like Vaseline and like Eucerin, and we would try to combine both to like give me some semblance of like comfort, because what happens is the wrong lotion would just sit right on top of my skin and not penetrate and do anything and just make me more uncomfortable. But when I got here, they introduced me Shriners to Hydrophore, which is now discontinued, and I don't know why that would ever happen, but like I never was able to get to like anyone to tell me why, like the company, why they did that. But that was like a lifesaver for me. Once that's what Shriners used for their burn survivors. And so when I got there, that's what they gave me, and I just had this endless supply. And so after I left the Shriner system, I used to just like get a direct supply from like the supplier, essentially, because because I guess maybe the water soluble, water based kind of ointment is the kind of thing that works for me. So Hydrophore was that. After they discontinued that, I worked with, because Shriners was panicking too, like, what are we gonna do? So we tried to, when so they called me and were like, what are you doing, you know, now? Because that they need us for their patients. So I was like, I'm in the middle of, I feel like a chemist. I'm here trying to figure out how to, like, combine this and combine that, trying to figure out what the heck to do. It was crazy. My mom, we were like, what are we gonna do? So what I did was, we got Aquaphor, but by itself it's too thick. It doesn't do much for me. So I started pouring things like Eucerin in there at first. I worked out, mixed it with like some oils. The one that worked at the end was the Aquaphor with bio oil. So pouring in bio oil and mixing it there. It just like, once I put it on my skin that first time, it was like, it felt like Hydrophor, and I just knew like this is fun. So I called the nurse in like Shriners and let him know like, this is what I'm doing. It might help y'all, but just so you know, that's what me. So that's what
I think it's fascinating that you mix them together. I always just went by. So I actually used for a while, and I still do to this day, but I used, like, I would order, when you said you order from the manufacturer, like I would order tubs from the Dr. Shorty's burn butter. So she is a doctor in
Please
Texas.
say that again, because
it's Dr. Shorty's burn butter. And I'll send you the links after. I'll put it in our description. But Dr. Shorty's, she actually attended one of our World Burns, I believe, as well, Rachel. And so I used that for a long time, and I still do. And I would order, like, I think at one point I had like 16 tubs like stacked up in the back of, but and they were one in every room. So I use hers. I also have tried Aveeno, and I don't know if you've tried that, but I found
I have tried Aveeno, and I think another one I tried was Cetaphil or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but those didn't quite work for me.
That didn't work. But the Dr. Shorty's, I liked I'm big on smell, and I had, my burn center gave us cocoa butter, but I always was like, I felt like I smelled like a chocolate bar. So I had to do away with it for a while. But yes, those are my go-tos. But check out Dr. Shorty. She's also in Texas.
Sure.
So
you already know. You should know that I'm probably gonna order today. I'm not even gonna, because I gotta say that bio oil is not cheap. It really is not. And so having to buy it every time I want to buy it, like mix my cream, is always like, it's just like an expense that I'd rather not have. So I'm definitely checking that out.
Check her out. Tracy Short. She's on Instagram too. She's great. I absolutely love Dr. Shorty's. I can't believe I've gone through a full season and hadn't mentioned her. So I think that's the first time I used to tell everyone I knew, scream it from the mountaintops, and I can't believe I haven't mentioned it so far.
Well, I'm so happy you did today, because you're probably about to change my life. You have no idea. Right? You have no idea.
I will also just quickly add to, and then we can move on. But I also use different lotions depending on the season. So if you're listening and want to try something out, I have to use a lighter lotion in the summer because I am so sweaty, and in the winter I have to use something thicker because I get too dry.
Yeah, and like sunscreen too is a big, I feel like, Kechi, I don't know about you, but I'm like always so picky. I use my doctor gave me the bottle that turns blue when it's sun outside. It's called Blue Lizard, and the sunscreen actually turns blue when UV rays are on it. So I think you can get
Wow.
it at like Target, but you'll have to check it out. It's also real cool, but
You
I'm very
you turn
picky about
blue
that.
like when you put it on too, or is it just the bottle, or is it the?
No, you don't turn blue when you put it on. Just that would be cool though. I think we need to propose that to
I
them,
would be
Kechi.
put I think that would be a pretty cool indicator.
Like, watch
Find out
out,
who's
you didn't
wearing
put
their sunscreen. Exactly. You know how you catch them in the lie. Like if you're not wearing your sunscreen, you're not.
That's right.
You're not wearing that.
That's awesome. Well, I think let's switch gears a little bit if it's
Okay.
okay with you, Kechi. I want
Yeah.
to talk about your love of music. When did that start? And how did that like play a role in your recovery?
Oh my gosh. So music is something, I mean, obviously we all love music in some form, but I grew up in a very particularly music household from both sides of my family. My mom's side especially, a lot of us sing. A lot of us have always loved to sing. It's in my family. And my dad's side, he has the most eclectic like taste in music. He's not tied to any genre, never has been. So I grew up with that basically. I also had like a lot of like years I spent in the children's choir. And a lot of my music influences were from my parents for sure. And then growing up, I sang in children's choir, and then I got to high school, sang in the high school choir, only a little bit though. That one, I was never quite disciplined enough to like go for all their like meetings and stuff. So I never quite joined. I would only sing like on some special occasions. But as I got older, my voice got better and I loved singing. I would sing a lot of times just for like my friends, for fun, and for like some high school events and things like that. So it was never really anything serious. Like I never grew up thinking, oh yeah, one day I'm going to pursue this as a career. It was just like a
Mhm.
hobby that made me happy. And every time I sang, I loved it. I enjoyed it. And I would, of course, like I'm sure everyone else does, put on like my own mini concert in like my room, imagining myself like in front of a crowd, like doing a little Beyonce
Mhm.
and like just having
I
fun
love
with
some
it,
Beyonce.
So yeah, that was like just my music experience as a teenager. This is around the time the accident happened. Now, what's interesting though is that following the accident, something actually happened to my voice. Like there's no way to explain it except to say that it just got better like after the
Mm,
accident. It there was a noticeable change in
mm,
my tone, in the way I sounded, that was just not there before. And my mom will attest to this because like literally the first time I opened my mouth and sang after the accident, this was in South Africa in the hospital. I remember it was a Kelly Clarkson song and I was singing along to her like new album just came out. And my mom just like kind of turned to me. I was like, what was that? That's not how you used to sound. And I was like, I know, what is this? I don't know what this is. Like both of us are just like baffled. Like what that's weird. Like did something happen, like shift with like my lungs or what? Like what is that?
mm.
We never really got like a medical reason why. Frankly, I didn't really care. I was just happy about it. It was like, one good thing, at least I could see
Positive.
is like one positive thing. And it was more importantly something I could enjoy regardless of how I was feeling and what I was
Mm,
doing. If even if I can't walk, I don't have the strength to move my physical body. I could open my mouth and sing and entertain myself in that way, no matter the circumstance. So of course that made it something even more special for me because it seemed to be this one thing in my life that had not been affected, rather had been improved, in fact, by what happened to me. So I grew very attached to it. It literally healed parts of me that like no surgery really could reach. And I
mm,
think that was a reason why I fully appreciated Shriners making it a part of like my healing and my
mm,
recovery when I eventually came to America. They saw how much I love music, how much I love singing. And so something that they actually only initially offered to their kids, like their little kid burn patients, became something they expanded to include like all ages because of me. And
that's awesome.
when they saw that, it was something that I loved, they felt like I would benefit from like music therapy as well. So
Mm,
they introduced me to the music therapist at the time, who was Christine, who's a dear friend till today. We just
mm,
connected, so it was like immediate, like the connection, and it just became my happy place. I would always look forward to it, and it was something I would do after physical therapy. Because that one usually hurt, but I could always
mm.
look forward to like this thing that did completely pain-free experience following physical therapy. And incidentally, Shriners was the first place where I actually had my first concert. We kind of me, myself, and other burn. So there were two other burn patients who also loved music. So one of them, she was a drummer. She just to show how incredible Shriners really is. Like, this is someone who drummed professionally. You know, she was a drummer, and her accident, her burns caused her, like, her fingers, all her fingers were gone. So you can imagine what that would do to someone like that psychologically. So what they did was they built a contraption that allowed her to still grip, like, the drumsticks.
Oh, wow.
Where she can, like, still, like, hit the drum sets just as hard as she would had she still had her fingers. And I always thought that that was, like, right there a great example of the kind of lengths that Shriners would go to like really be very, like, address each patient based on their own situation. There was never any blanket kind of treatment for everyone. We were all treated like individuals, and that's what made that experience with Shriners so special to me. So Norma, that was her name. Well, now I haven't talked to her in years, but it was fun. We formed, like, a little band with the music therapy team, and we put on a concert for the kids that were, like, inpatient in the hospital. It was, like, on the 7th floor of the hospital in one of the big, like, meeting rooms. And it was so fun. I still, like, Christine still has that footage till today. And
oh, wow.
It's just so crazy to hear me. Like, I can hear all the nerves, and I can hear the moment where I was, like, finally a little more relaxed. But the thing is, as kids, they wouldn't have cared how I sounded. They'd clap at anything. So they didn't care. They were just there for fun. And so that was my first concert experience, and then after that, still music was not going to be something that I would pursue, like, professionally. It was just like, now it's just this really, really cool hobby, and I had this karaoke machine my dad got me, and I would just jam out on that thing every single chance I got. Once I was healed enough from a surgery, I was on that machine 24/7, just, like, singing every song I could possibly sing. And I still have that machine till today. But would I have ever guessed, like, America's Got Talent would happen? I didn't even sign up for that show. Like, one of my best friends actually signed me up without telling me. That's how that.
That's amazing.
So I was literally in the middle of my MBA. I was not doing anything with music except for singing. Singing in my church worship team, to me, was already like a jump out of my comfort zone. To me, I was already doing more than I ever did with my voice. I felt like, okay, God, like, at this, like, you can be, like, there's no issue here, because you can't say I'm, like, holding this gift back or whatever, because I'm doing something with it. I'm singing, and I'm singing to you. So, like, it can't be a bad thing. Like, this is enough, So I was never going to pursue anything further. But my friend, for years before this, had always been telling me to sign up for the show. My dad as well.
Was she a fan of the show?
She is a huge fan of any music show. So
okay.
American Idol, America's Got Talent. She would tell me about X Factor. When The Voice came out, she started sending those to me too. This is years, guys, of doing this. So finally, 16, she just got sick of me, and she just texted me one day and said, "Listen, I signed you up for America's Got Talent. I filled out the form because I missed." She sent me the when they were doing, like, the in-person auditions, and I just ignored that. So when they started doing the online audition, she was like, "Maybe do this instead." And I was like, maybe I'll think about it. Never did it. So she just went ahead, filled it out, put in her email just in case they reject me. She was like, I wouldn't even see it. I got it. She covered all the base. She was like, let's just see what happens. And I was like, well, you've already done it. I mean, it's done. So that's cool. That's fine. And then they called me. So she changed my life, quite literally.
And I hope you're still friends to this day.
Oh no, come on, like, someone that would go that far for you, there's just no way I could be mad at her for that. She obviously believed in me in a way that, like, till today I struggle really too. So I mean, to have someone see that in you, I think, is a blessing. And I would never have taken that step, just quite literally. So I will always be grateful to her for taking that chance, helping me take that chance on myself, So yeah, so that's, I guess, just in summary, what music is to me. It's everything. It's really and it's fun. I love it. So
that's amazing. So what was that experience like? Like, when you got that call, what were your expectations going into America's Got Talent? Or did you're just happy you got a phone call?
That's such a great question, because expectations literally zero. I went in like, look, I didn't even put myself here. So I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea what God's plan here is, but I firmly believe that if things happen in your life and you've already dedicated your life to him, you've told him, listen, whatever like you want from me, just like take charge and let your will like overcome mine in like situations where like you feel like I'm just doing things like stupidly, like just do whatever you need to. So I do what I'm supposed to with my life. Like I've always felt that way very strongly. So when the way this happened just felt so miraculous, really. And just the fact that like I got into this situation without any effort from myself was to me like a sign that maybe there's something here that I should explore. I didn't know what it was. I didn't go in thinking I might win or like I might even make it past the first audition, but I just felt like maybe there's something in this experience that matters in the grand scheme of my life. So I just kind of went in like, let's just see what happens. That was my entire attitude towards it. So after the first audition, it was like, okay, that actually happened. Like up until that moment, I didn't believe they would actually put me on TV. Like I didn't believe, like, I felt like they liked my story, I think, and my voice it's okay. It's good. I think that's fine. Do I think it's competitive? I don't know if I would say that, but cool. But will they actually air this? Like, I don't know how far they're going to, cause I've never seen, us on.
You had never seen, which is also hilarious that you hadn't even watched it.
Like literally, like I've never. Oh no, I've watched the show, but I've never seen Burn Survivors on TV. Like up until that point. So and this is NBC. It's literally a national station. So I was just like, is this actually gonna happen? Like, okay, let's see. So when the first episode came out, and I saw myself, I was like, damn, I guess they're serious. Okay. So like I passed the first audition, and I was like, okay. And then the judge cuts came, and then it was like, you're going to the live shows. I was like, I didn't prepare for it being this far, like I was just like, okay, so I'm actually gonna, okay. So just let's see how this goes. So the live shows start. Getting to the live shows, like basically at every step, I'm like, I cannot believe I made it this far. I'm just already grateful. If I were to go home from here, it'll be more than what I already expected. So that's fine. So when every stage came and I would pass, I was just like, what the heck is going on? Is this for are people actually voting? Is my voice actually like good enough to be here? Like this is so when I got to the top 10, I was like, top 10? Wow. Like this is just I don't even know what to make of this, So it was very exciting. And also I would say it was really just really sweet to see people like because I've never really grown up hearing much about my voice aside from like people around me that I knew. And then I guess when I started singing in church, I started hearing like, people just in the congregation, like every once in a while, like, oh, you sound so nice. So having the experience of strangers telling me like how I sound and giving an opinion about it was new for me, especially on that platform. These are people like the judges, like Simon, Heidi, Mel B, people who like hear talented people all the time. To hear them validate my voice, I would not deny was extremely just very satisfying. And I was just full of gratitude for that. It really humbled me. And so I just started, they actually helped me believe more and more in myself and in my voice that there's actually something special there. So after the show, the main thing they gave me was that platform, to share my story, to just get people to know more about me and to be inspired by me in some form. I think that was the biggest takeaway from America's Got Talent. But of course, like being able to hear people validate my voice made me more confident in it. And till today, that's confidence that is like, I think it's something that would probably endlessly grow. So I'm just really grateful so far for everything. Honestly, it's really gratitude would be the main emotion, I think, from everything,
I love that you talked to about like finding, realizing that there might have been a greater purpose for your injury. Cause I think that's really, really hard, right? It's like in the moment. And I think, people tell you that, or I've heard other survivors, right, give that advice to others like, oh, you don't always know what, that I think it's so hard to believe that until you're on the other side. And I think like now that I'm on the other side, I see like there is a greater purpose for things that happen for us. But sometimes in that moment, it can feel.
Oh no! Oh my God! It's impossible. It's near impossible to see beyond the experience as it's happening. It's a great example for me would be my itching. In the moment when it was at its worst, my mom would tell me it'll get better, and I just look at her like, there's just no, like, how, like these like, how for it to get better would imply the burns would go away, because the burns are what, like, this is what's causing it. And if I'm going to have this for life, there's no reason for me not to believe that this itching is not going to be for life, because I just could not see a future where I would not be itching 24/7. It felt like hell. It felt like literal living hell, and so I just could not see past that. So I just feel like, had I stayed in like a depressed state at that time, had I stayed in that low place forever, I would never have afforded myself the chance to see a future where things would be better. And now I'm currently living in that better. And it's something that I'm so grateful for, but it's everything. I mean, it just goes back to what you said. It's so hard to see it as it's happening. You just can't see beyond that. And I think for me, a big angle of being on that show on TV was to tackle exactly that for other burn survivors, because I know growing up, or rather like going through our experience as burn survivors, especially kids, like anyone really, it's just hard to imagine life after all of this. Like, it's hard to see life beyond the hospital, life beyond the surgeries, the physical therapy, the splints and the face mask and the sutures and everything that has to do with having these burns. I think it's so hard to see the after. And when you hear it from the nurses and the doctors, like, for sure it's going to get better, they don't have the experience you have. So it's just hard to really internalize it from their point of view. But when you hear it from someone who looks like you, when you hear it from someone who obviously has the exact same experience as you can see it physically on them that they've had that, it makes all the difference. And so I wanted to be a voice, like, I wanted to be such a voice that can, and such a presence, a role model of the fact that what these doctors and nurses are saying is real. It's true that there is life after trauma. I'm literally living that life. And I want people who have experienced what we've experienced to see me, to see us, and envision like what their own after will be as well, based on what they can see us doing. Because, they know that we've seen that, they know that we understand what they're currently going through.
And such a positive representation, right? Because we talk about this all the time, of like, media representation of burn survivors isn't always positive. Like, it's unfortunate, but that's the fact of the game. So to see such a positive story, right, and such a happy like ending for you,
exactly.
I think was what hits me the most, is to know that you have that story out there of, it doesn't have to be the way it's always portrayed on
exactly
in the media, right?
The reality nice. The reality can be like, you can still have fun, you can still, there's stuff to still laugh about, and stuff to enjoy, even in this body as it is. It might be different, but you can still have fun in it. You don't have to stop enjoying life. And I think honestly, not just burn survivors, we all really need that on some level, so yeah.
Well, and I love too that, that you're being vulnerable too. It's not a perfect story after either. There's highs and lows. And unfortunately, like we said, we just don't see that a lot in the media or really online or anywhere at all. So I love that, you're sharing your story with this purpose. And I know you also, I'm kind of jumping ahead a little here, but you also wrote a book, your memoir.
Yes.
And so can you tell us a little bit more about what, I'm sure it's more than just your burn injury in that memoir. So can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Not a problem. So More Than My Scars is my book that I came out with last year. And it's, I mean,
So
the title is very pretty much self-explanatory. That's literally my life mantra, that I am more than my scars, and that we are more than our scars, our trauma, burn survivors or anyone else who has any physical kind of injury or trauma or invisible trauma. They're all valid and they're all equal. And I feel that I wanted people from all walks of life to feel represented by just the title, even before getting into the book, that we are all more than what we have been through. And so I think that was the main, the most important message, I think, that I wanted to put out there into the world. I wanted anyone else who can relate to any kind of traumatic experience to feel seen through this book and through the words on my pages. And I wanted to really take people into the nitty-gritty of what it means to survive something like this. Like, a lot of people encountered me in the after, where things are much better. They didn't really encounter me in the growing, the developing, the parts where I had to strive and struggle to get to the mindset that I currently have. It was not smooth. It was messy. It was a struggle. And I wanted to share that entire thing with everyone so that people know that I'm not like, there's nothing special here. Like, I'm a human being just like you. And I struggled to get to this place. I'm happy I'm here now. And I'm happy that how I am now can serve as some kind of inspiration for anyone out there, hopefully. But I wasn't born this way. It developed. It was things around me. It was the people around me, the people, that the energy that was fed into my life. My faith played a huge role in that as well. And a big part of my personality also played a role in how I end up too. So I just wanted to show everything about that. And I knew that a lot of burn survivors would definitely relate to like my story and the things that I went through, this different surges and things like that. And then the identity issues as well, trying to figure out who you are after all this in a world that is so judgmental and will try to tell you how to feel about yourself if you let it, so also just talking about what I had to go through to take back that power, to make sure that I owned who I was before I went back out into the world looking different, and so I just wanted to show people like, this is what I did. So maybe this can serve as like an example to someone who might need just a different perspective also on how to deal with trauma. So I think that's really why I wrote my book, and that's what's pretty much in the pages, condensed. And every time I hear that someone else has read it or has been touched by it in some way, and people text me all the time, mostly DMs or Facebook messages, it always makes me feel like the first time I got one stranger telling me that they read it and it touched them in some way, that was all I needed to know about the fact that I was supposed to do this. Because it really, 1,001 million, it's all the same to me. I want to just reach someone with the life after trauma message. And I think that so far it's reached like quite a few people, and I'm just so grateful for that. So, it was an effort that was not wasted at all, and I just hope more people know about it. Yeah. So I'm just very happy.
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful. And what you said really, I think hits home, because especially with someone with a following, right? So whether it's on Instagram or Facebook or wherever, with that social media today, and I see this even just in my own life, people see what you want them to see. And so sometimes it can be really hard for them to see the struggles, right? Like, this is me now, but I also struggled a lot, behind the scenes. And so it's really great for you to be vulnerable in that book, to be able to tell there's life after trauma, but I still went through it, and it still wasn't fantastic.
It was very ugly. It was not pretty at all. No.
Right.
Yeah. That's really what I wanted to show. And, I try my best to make sure that my social media never misrepresents who I am. I'm not going to lie. It's hard, and it gets harder the more your following grows. Undoubtedly, it's only natural. The more people follow you, the more you feel the need to put out a certain image, because you feel like that's the image that drew them to you. But you forget that, like, the authenticity of who you are is what you may have. I mean, if you started your page or your social media with that, and you started growing a following from that, that was really the main attraction. It wasn't really anything else but that. And so as my following grew over the years, I had to constantly check myself to make sure I'm still doing things for the same exact reason I first started, like this, all these different social media platforms. I want to make sure that I'm not, just showing the rosy stuff. I want to make sure that I'm constantly showing my reality, which is full of ups and downs. So when I'm having a bad day, of course, no one wants to post when they're having a bad day, but I intentionally try to do that too, because people need to know. I just firmly believe that, like, well, I guess this is not anything new. It's true. It's just that it's hard for people to do. But I really want to be an example of something that we all know, which is the fact that, like, the more we put out our authentic lives on social media, the less pressure people feel who are like consuming that media to I guess put out like a fake image that they feel they have to maintain online. We're all influenced by the things that we read and see, and there's so much stimulation now out there. So I feel like the more we see like reality, the more we know it's okay to also post reality. And then the less we are all just as a society pressured by different standards. So I think I wanted to make sure that like I would be like however I am now, how I was before, it doesn't change how I post. So people can still see like, that this person is living a balanced life. It's not all great.
Mhm.
It's bad too.
Yeah.
I hope that I can continue that, mainly for the sake of burn survivors who follow me, because I want them to like, I have many wigs and stuff, but I make a point, although that one's not really, admittedly, it's not too hard because I've always done it, but like I wear my hat sometimes I just go
Mm.
without my wigs and just show my hair like as it is, because
Mm.
that's my life. That's who I actually am. That's my reality.
Mhm.
Sometimes I wear wigs, sometimes I don't. So
Mm.
I think burn survivors were already so like different looking because of what's happened to us. So I think we need the encouragement to like post like everyone else, even despite how we look. And so
Mhm.
you see other burn survivors like just posting like a normal, like anyone else would. It allows you to feel like you can do that too, and
Mhm.
so
For sure. And I do think, and maybe this is just me because I've been trying to be better at this, I do feel like we are seeing a shift of what people are posting online, that it's less
it's
of
not just you.
the 100, like the filter all the way turned up where you don't even look like yourself anymore. I do see that, and that gives me hope
Me
knowing
too.
that, okay, maybe this is a trend that's changing
It's
for the
this
better.
generation. It's like these Gen Z, they are changing the game, especially with TikTok. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I think they were born into this era of like a lot of BS of like just putting out image, and they are doing everything they can to fight that
Break
because
it down.
they're seeing that it's really messing with them like mentally, and they don't want that, and they're so into like mental health, like being healthy mentally. And I think that they've seen that correlation with like mental health and like social media, and they're trying to really just make sure that, look, some days I wear makeup, some days I don't, and that's okay. And I'm loving that
I
shift. And
love that.
because being on social media like all the time, I literally am seeing that, and it's really, really wonderful. I love everything about it. So I hope that it's a trend that continues for the right reasons. And yeah, it's just great to see, honestly. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's so true.
Yeah, and as somebody who's like self-proclaimed and mental health advocacy, I think that's even seen a shift of like it's okay to not be okay, right? And so it's, I think, even just it's a hard thing in generations, right, to get
Yeah.
every generation to
True.
understand.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen it more and more of being vulnerable and being willing to put yourself out there, because I think it surprises you, right? Like, and I take this back to my burn injury, but I think it's anything in general. It may surprise you when you put something out there about a burn injury or a mental health struggle or whatnot, how many other folks can relate. Right?
Yep.
And I'm sure how many DMs you get when you're vulnerable and tell something versus how just sharing a picture of positivity. I think there's power in being able to relate to something that we struggle with as humans.
It's representation. It matters in every form. That's the fact. And it helps to destigmatize, just the idea of getting help for like, mental issues, just like physical issues. It's important. Growing up in like my country, Nigeria, is a country that is heavily biased against mental health. There's a very interesting cultural history of being attached to this notion of struggle, like making it a part of like your, not personality, a part of, it's almost like glorifying struggle, and struggling through difficulty is like the way to be. It's the way to be a strong person, is the way to, like, you need to like go through that, like things difficult in a difficult way, and like you need to deal with stuff on your own in order to like be strong. There's that. It's a very deep rooted kind of mentality, and it comes from just the hardship of living in a country like Nigeria. Just, I think that's just what it is. It, because of how hard the country is, people just end up having to just grit their teeth and bear different, like, unfortunate circumstances, and then they grow. And so that was our parents, that's what they did. They had to overcome difficult stuff to get to where they are and have us and make sure that we don't have to struggle the way that they did, you know?
Mm.
But then they forget that in making that life better for us, we want better for ourselves too. You know, we don't want to struggle like they did. We don't want to have to go through things independently and alone and then ended up carrying all this untreated baggage in our mental like states, which is what a lot of our parents are dealing with till today and projecting on their kids. So we are trying to, as time passes, which is what's supposed to happen, break that cycle of like going through things by yourself, and how there's like this it's almost like there's a shame in asking for help and admitting that you're not mentally okay. But like people today, my generation and like the ones coming after us, are trying to destigmatize that in Nigeria. And that's a really it's an uphill, it's a very hard, a very steep climb, because this struggle mentality is something that's entrenched in the culture. So it's interesting to see that even a country like Nigeria, which I'm very familiar with, I know how people are there, even there, like the idea of just psychology, mental health, mental awareness, like it's growing. And for it to reach even a country like that, I think means that there's definitely some kind of global shift happening. And I'm just happy to be alive, like in an era where it's happening, you know? So I really appreciate that. But yeah, it's definitely great to see it happening. Just stigmatizing of mental illness or mental awareness. Yeah.
Definitely. And hopefully it's a trend that continues, that we can all help support.
Yeah, I agree.
So I know we're running out of time already, but we have a few more questions for you that we want to go through really quick. So, and I don't want to not talk about your debut album, because that was a huge milestone for you. So could you ever have imagined when in 2005, when your burn injury happened, that you would have your own debut album?
And that Simon Cowell is raving about you, right?
16-year-old Kechi would, like, her head will be like, she would be like, that's a lie, like, Cap, there's no way that there's just like, where the trajectory wouldn't even make sense, because like that's not even where my life was. Like I never envisioned anything like that, you know? So it's what's interesting that has happened in my life is that the things that I've always been interested in, the things that have the number one, like there's three things I've always loved: music, singing, writing, and talking. Just talking. I've always had that issue, like from like elementary school. Like I would have a report card and teacher would be like, she's a great student, but she's a chronic noisemaker. She's always was a constant, like every year from like grade like 1 to 6. Like it was anyway. So these are three things I've always loved doing. So of course I was in speech and debate in like high school naturally. And I sang a lot in school. And I actually wrote a book while I was in high school. So while people were studying, I was writing this fictional story about like a gypsy girl and this teenage boy who moves to a new city and met this community of gypsies, and like they had a romance. Like that's the story that I wrote like in like my like notebooks, and it became like one notebook into like 5 like taped together. And it got to a point where like I had like my classmates and my peers like literally forming like lines, like virtual lines, like waiting to read like every update. And I always think about this because like in the moment when it was happening, it was like I'm just having fun. But when I think about it, it's like I literally set all these things in motion that are happening in my life now at that time. I just didn't know it yet. Unfortunately, that book, I was actually taking it home the day the accident happened to show my mom for the first time. And obviously it's gone. That really sucks because I was so excited to show her like, here's what I've been doing instead of studying, Mom. This is what I've been doing. I've been writing. But I just find it so interesting how like it took a very weird, like I guess windy path, but somehow those things that I thought of as like just hobbies in high school ended up being like literal careers today. And I find it so interesting that somehow God just kind of found me, like helped me find my way right back to these things that I've always loved to do. So, I mean, 15-year-old Kechi would never have seen the path that it would have taken to get to this place, but would definitely be very happy that that's what happened with her life. You know, so I'm just really grateful. The album was a work of love for sure, because it was a
Mm.
complete collaboration. Every single person that worked on that album donated their time, their efforts, their energy, their studio to me to make that happen. Just people from all over the world who believed in me and wanted to help me just quite sincerely. And so I'm so proud of it. I'm so grateful for it. And it set a lot of great things in motion that hopefully will happen this year. And I'm just really excited for whatever music is going to be like for me. I want to do so much with it. I want to do everything that I possibly can. So I'm just really along for the ride. And I don't know how long this is going to last and how long I'm going to be able to do this, but forever, for however long, I'm happy and I'm grateful. So yeah.
It's amazing. That's awesome. I'm so happy for you. I've listened to the
You.
album. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot
Yeah,
to me. Really.
of
Thank
course, of course.
you.
So before we close out, we always ask our Girls at Graphs guests 2 questions. So our first question is, do you do anything special to celebrate your Burniversary? And it's okay if you don't have anything. We just love to know. Sometimes we hear some really unique ways
Stories.
to celebrate.
Yeah.
My Burniversary is a day that I take stock of the year, how things have been since the last Burniversary, and I think about what I've done with my life and how much of it I have, I guess, devoted towards my promise to the 60 angels from my school who passed away in that accident. Because one of the main things that gave me purpose, I guess, again, and drew me out of my depression when things were really bad, was drawing strength from their memories. Instead of being sad about their passing and staying depressed that they were no longer here, using my life as a way to just glorify them, a way to honor them, and basically living my life for them as well. So just remembering always that my life is not just mine, but it's also for those 60 angels. When I got to high school, I continued high school for them. When I finished college and graduated, I did that for them. So they are always at the forefront of what I do. And it's not necessarily to do anything incredible, but just to make sure that whatever I end up doing, I do it well, because I'm doing it. It's something that they never got the second chance that I got to do. So every year I try to take stock of what I've done since the last time I touched base with the angels. And I try to just show them what other things I've done to kind of continue to honor their memory and to show them that I'm appreciating this second chance at life I was given, that was taken from them. So I usually do this by either, like, it's always a post, like, it's always like, it used to, in the beginning, I actually started doing this after I moved to America. So I moved here, and then once I made like my first like social media accounts, I would use that to kind of update people on what was going on with me, because what happened was a national, everyone knew about it, like especially Nigerian. So there were a lot of people that were very eager to just know how is she doing, what it's like, from all over the world. So that was the main reason I opened my first social media account, which was on Facebook. So I actually started doing this like post where I would talk to the angels like on my social media platform. And I started doing this in 2010.
Oh, wow.
So since then, every year I put something up. It might be just text, it might be a video, it might just be a picture, but it's usually a video where I just kind of talk to my audience. I talk to them, and I'm just like, once again, just grateful for making it to yet another anniversary, so that's what I do. So I mean, my social media, like every single December 10th, you will see like a post that I did on that day dedicated to the angels and to everyone else who passed away that day. So that's what I do. That's it.
That's beautiful. I love that. And I love that you can go back, right, and look at the almost like journal entries that you've made. So that's
exactly
beautiful.
Exactly.
Well, I know we're coming up on time here, Kechi, but before you go, my question for survivors is always, what does self-care look like for Kechi? So how do you practice self-care in your life, and what do you like to do?
Self-care is always making sure that I have room and time to do something that I truly love, something that will feed my spirit, my soul, and not just my body. So for me, that can change depending on what mood I'm in. A lot of times it is eating my favorite food. Also a lot of times, other times it's singing for fun, not singing for work, but just singing for fun because I want to always remember that I just actually sincerely love this stuff, you know. And then other times it's reading for fun. So going through so much school, I just finished my MBA, and like I've done so much reading that I just would frankly never have done. I try to just once in a while read something that I actually chose. Like last year, my biggest achievement was reading The Body Keeps the Score. And
I love that book.
That was a book that had been recommended to me like for a while. And I finally read it last year, and it changed my like. I didn't know I had any more changing to do. I have to be honest. Like sometimes I just feel like I've peaked. Like I'm pretty much like how I'm going to be for the rest of my life. But that book changed a lot of my perspectives. So I do something for myself where sometimes it's a fictional book. It doesn't have to be like a book like, like that's like that. But just reading a book that I chose for myself, not because like someone read it for like a grade. So that's another thing. And I think those are the main things, honestly. That's really what I think it's really just being kind to yourself, and just remembering to just cut yourself some slack sometimes and do something fun, like sometimes, just for the heck of it, not because it means to an end, but just because it's something that you like. That's, I think, and it's important for anyone, not just burn survivors, but I think specifically for burn survivors, I think, we've been through a lot. And so we sometimes kind of can get used to like just, surviving, but we need to thrive too. And so sometimes we need to remind ourselves that it's important that we thrive, not just survive what we've been through. So
that's Rachel's favorite saying, surviving and thriving. And Kechi, I love The Body Keeps the Score. Somebody recently told me about another book that they like called Waking the Tiger. Have you read Waking the Tiger by Peter Levine?
I have not.
I heard about that in our recent support group. One of our mental health counselors gave it to us. So I started reading it. So far, it's really good. But maybe that'll be on your 2023.
Yeah, 2023. I love it. I have another one on my list. It's called Professional Troublemaker. That's another one.
I have not heard about that one.
It's by Lovie Jones. It's okay. I follow her already on social media, but like this is a book. She has 2 books that I've always wanted to read. This is the first one that like put her on like bestseller, like New York Times and all that. So I've never read it. I want to read that. So it's called Professional Troublemaker. It's really
I'll have to look at it.
Breaking barriers and things. It's very cool. You've given me so much good stuff. This like needs to like look up when I leave this call.
Well, Kechi, it has been truly a pleasure. We'll have to do this again sometime soon. Please, if there's any time we can here at Phoenix Society provide you any more support, or you want to come chat with us again, we'd love to have you once again. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It's been great.
It's a pleasure. Well, thank you so much, Kechi. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Girls with Grafts. If you are enjoying this content, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.